So I'd like to call the meeting to order at 10:07. President Bill McGowan, Lisa McGonigal, Dan Coughlin, Ron Hoffman, and Wayne Sawchuk. So Wayne, the first thing I thought we would do is talk to Patrick Kennedy on the abatement request, then we can go into the other things on the easement. Excuse me, on the agenda. All right.
Great.
All right, Patrick, you got the floor.
Okay, so when we were at the last meeting, I guess a couple of weeks ago, it had been shortly after I submitted an abatement request for the first quarter bill in fiscal 2021. That's the quarter covering July, August, and September. I had submitted an abatement request, or we had submitted an abatement request. The bill is actually in my wife Diane's name, for excess use of water during that first quarter of 2021 because of a leaking toilet that we did not discover until after we received a bill for the first quarter. So the way the billing works is that that quarter ends at the end of September, and then you get your bill about a month later, so that would have been about the end of October. Upon receipt of the bill, I looked at it, saw that it was a very large number of cubic feet usage that surprised me. We didn't know why. We had a water meter issue earlier in the summer. We thought maybe it was related to that. Immediately got in touch with the water department, Brenda, and talked with her. She looked back into the record, said it didn't appear to be the water meter because the water meter had been replaced just prior to the start of that quarter. She said it's probably a leak inside your house that you're not aware of. She said to check all of the utilities that have a water connection, especially toilets. That she also sent out Connor O'Brien, who's the Woodward and current employee, who can do meter readings from the driveway using some sort of device that is wireless. He determined based on those readings, and she called me back, that there had been a steady flow of water. There was a leak during the full quarter. So we then checked every toilet and found that it was a toilet in the front left side of our house that it's an ensuite bathroom that used to be our master bathroom that we no longer, at least during that time period, saw very, very little use, and is in an area of the house where it was quiet. It was a water leak that didn't come to our attention, quite frankly, until we got the bill. As I said before, we didn't know about so upon discovery of the leak in that toilet, we immediately shut off that toilet and have had it repaired. The bill, obviously, because it wasn't discovered until the end of October, early November, there's another month where it was leaking that we didn't know about it. That's going to be in this upcoming bill. We're not going to seek an abatement on that. All we are seeking is an abatement on the excess usage for the first quarter of 2021. And that's what I submitted with all the backing information that fits your regs on consideration of an abatement. Obviously, it's discretionary. I think we meet the criteria for an abatement. It was something that we didn't know about. We've never sought an abatement before. We've been here for 22 years. In my view, it's kind of like a one-time thing. We addressed it. You also expressed wanting to hear about the Water Commission's consideration of our abatement request for the same amount based on the same facts. That was heard last week at the Water Commission's meeting. They granted an abatement for the requested cubic feet, I think it's 4,700 cubic feet, by a vote of 2-1. Their discussion and deliberation sort of focused on their consideration of abatement requests over the years, and they expressed that they get a lot of them related to outside sprinkler system failures and whatnot, and that they never grant them for outside failures in sprinkler systems. With regard to interior leaks that are deemed not negligent on a one-time basis, they do consider them and grant them in some instances. And in this one, by 2-to-1 vote, they did grant it.
How much is the abatement for? For us?
Your form asked, I didn't do the calculation because your form doesn't ask for the calculation. Your form and your request asked for cubic feet of water, and that's what I submitted, 4,700 cubic feet of water during that quarter. The Water Commission then did a calculation, and we received in the mail an abatement converted over to dollars. That is actually not a check. They give a credit to the next bill. Is the way it works, apparently. You know.
So it's 4,700 the excess over your normal bill?
That's correct. Based on a calculation of, what I did was the 4 quarters preceding the first quarter of 2021, the average usage during those 4 quarters was 1,600 cubic feet. The usage during first quarter 2021 was 6,300. So I did 6,300 minus 1,600, the excess usage, 4,700 cubic feet.
And the water department abated you the 4,700?
Yeah, they did a calculation that converted it over to dollars, but my belief is based on the way they deliberated and voted that yes, it was the 4,700.
It actually ended up being $377. I talked to Brent yesterday. It was $377 that the water was abated.
So on the bill itself, what is the sewer component of this extra, for the extra water?
Lisa said $377.
That was the water, is it? That was water,
That was
right?
the water. The sewer component ended up being, for the 4,700, was 467.
467, okay. Okay. I make a motion to approve an abatement of $467 because this was a first-time event and he did an excellent job with all his preparation.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, I second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank you.
you're done.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your time and consideration.
All righty.
Appreciate your efforts. Next.
Yep, next.
Easements. That's all I have on the agenda, would be easements, and the postcards went out 2 weeks ago and, well, a week and a half ago. I received a few calls asking when they're going to get the documents to sign. And I explained that we have to wait a couple of weeks. That's what the whole purpose of the postcards was to weed out any undeliverables. And it's working because one resident called and said they go away for 4 months and they wouldn't be here to get that certified mail. And so I asked if he could give an address where we could send it, and he said they move around. So I wanted to bring that up to you guys and see what we do in that case there.
They provide an email?
I can email him, yep, he gave me his email address, and wanted to make sure that that was okay, to do everything by email.
You just do a return receipt or read receipt?
Yep.
Yep, right, Ron?
That's fine.
What else? I got one that was undeliverable, and so I'll take all those, the others that come in, and make sure I can find the correct address. I think what I'm going to have to do is go by each address because there are some rental properties, and so I'll go through each document, each account, and compare them again. There's probably a handful that are rentals and or they own multiple properties.
Okay.
And that's all I have for that.
All right. Yeah, I actually got a couple of comments too, and most of it was very inane stuff like, you know, what's this for and what have you. So one of the things that I think we should talk about are the people that haven't paid anything in their sewer charges yet. And what do we do about that? Maybe we talk to Dawn about that tomorrow as well.
Yeah, there may be a town policy already.
I don't know. I mean, some of them I know are Little Harbor. I mean, people that are in the Little Harbor piece. So
I think we should just make a decision now as far as how far back we want to go, and then I think we should just start it. And then when the complaints or whatever like that come back, then we would act on it separately and move ahead that way. I think if if any of these are in the North Cohasset thing, it's going to just make things more complicated if we don't do something.
Rod, how far back can we go legally? I think that question was asked a couple of meetings ago.
It would be the statute of limitations for a contract action, which is 6 years. And I think our discussion was that's probably pushing it, a year or two, or, other towns have done 6 months, 12 months, 2 years.
I think it makes a little bit of a difference in terms of what the amount is we're trying to collect. Meaning, if they were a heavy sewer user, then obviously it would be a greater what they're going to think is a penalty on them. If it's someone whose bill is $400 a year, we could go back a couple of years, and if it's $4,000, it's going to be more difficult to get the money.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the same time, they owe us the money. It's not like it's they can't say they haven't received a service. I mean, where's the stuff going? It's
the only thing that may happen is we may find that there's been a sale that they weren't the owner. They've only been the owner for 2 years or whatever, and something didn't happen that way. But I think any of these cases, we should just say, we should start maybe at 2 years, and then, if there's a hardship or things like that, and whatever the circumstances, and the last time we did this with a couple of them, like Lily Pond Lane and stuff, and I think one over in Hull Street, that we invited them to come to a meeting and hear their case if they wanted to arbitrate it or whatever.
Mhm.
And
Well, I mean, the whole thing about when you buy a house, I sort of understand it. I mean, I had a neighbor one time that would leave all his trash outside waiting for the town to pick it up, because that's where he moved from. They did that, and I went up to him and said, sorry, on this street, there's no trash and no streetlights, no nothing. So you've got a hydrant out there, and we don't even know if that's hooked up to the water yet. So
Let me just jump in. If they bought the property and got a municipal lien certificate, then I think, that forecloses beyond that.
Yeah. Are we in any? Are we in any jeopardy at all as a town entity? Because I'm presuming we didn't send a bill out for whatever the reason. Is there any liability on us for not sending a bill?
No, we rendered the service, and they're, the legal theory is, they got the service, they should pay fair value for it. And I'm not a litigator, and I always judge these things. Would I be willing to walk into court and make this argument? And this is one that I would be, I would do. So
yeah, I would agree, Wayne. I'd make a motion that we go back 2 years and we bill everybody. Now the rates have changed, right? I mean, we haven't had the same rate for 2 years. How do we do that? Do we bill them at the prevailing rate at the time that they would have been billed?
that's what I would advise.
Okay. And then,
Well, your rate might have been the same for the last 2 years.
I think it was.
yeah, maybe, I'm sort of thinking out loud on that stuff. So, yeah, I would do that. I'd send out bills.
now, do we send out a bill that basically it's billed quarterly? So do we send them 8 bills, copy of 8 bills of what it would have been? Or do we say, we pick like a water meter time, take from the water department, take their water reading from then till now, and then put those components in. So we're going to charge them what that amount of sewage went into the system. And then and then 8 quarterly bills, whatever, if it's $45 a quarter, put in, 8 quarters at $45. Try to make it as simple, but something that is accurate in terms of, rather than pick a number of, well, we think it's worth this much. So we just get a start and end reading, and then calculate that, put the quarters in, and then that's what the bill's going to be.
Yep.
Plus-
And
plus-
if they refuse to pay, we just put a lien on them. Is that the mechanism?
Yes.
Once the bill is done, and if the bill ends up going to the treasurer as a receivable, and that is not then paid in the future, it will automatically go on as a lien. That's probably the one way that we will collect this, because if it remains unpaid for a year, it's going to go on their tax bill as a liability on the sewer department, meaning if they owe the sewer department, and then the bank that has the mortgage that takes out the tax money in escrow is going to take that amount out, and they're going to end up paying it because they don't want that old bill to be on the mortgage for the building. Isn't that pretty much how it goes? That's what happened. So I know.
So the mechanism of this will be Lisa going to Brenda and saying, we want to bill the following people going out 2 years based on their water usage to sewer. The sewer bill comes from them, right?
Yeah. I didn't know if you were going to do it separately, where we just call Brenda and say, what is the, look up on the computer and tell us what their water was and what it is now. But if she has, I don't know whether the computer system that she's using is sophisticated. So she's,
Yeah, but what I'm trying to do is like kill 2 birds with 1 stone, get the bill out, but then also have her continue to bill them. So
Right.
put them in the system as a sewer user and continue to bill them.
Right. And then have that as the old balance.
Yes.
Right. So that old balance has to be set up. So when they get that first bill, it'll list amount down here, and then it'll list the current bill.
And I think a letter with an explanation would be prudent.
Yeah, probably too.
Pretty quick is that they'd call. Oh, you made a bill, and say, what do you mean?
But we probably should have some sort of unfortunately for the last 6 years, you haven't been paying your sewer bill, and in a recent audit, we noticed it. Here's the bill. We're only going back 2 years. Timely payments are always appreciated, something like that, and leave it at that. Then they'll get mad at us and come back to us.
Yeah, a personal call would certainly, help. And if you had the number that it's owed, and you indicate to them, this is going to be added to your you're going to be getting a new bill now for current charges, but you happen to owe this much in arrears because you never got a bill before.
Yeah, my own opinion is I think it's politically safer to send a note rather than call, because you don't want to get talk to some crazy person.
They'll call on their own.
Yeah.
Brenda can print out water use just for that property, and maybe you should send that along as part of it.
Yeah.
It may be more difficult for her to generate that type of old bills. So you might be better off, like Wayne said, doing it yourself. Just attach a summary of what they have used.
Yeah, I don't think it's a harm to ask her though if she can generate a bill going back. I mean, it would
No, I think she can do that fairly quickly.
Yeah, and I think the underlying reason I'm asking is then that person is now in the system, and you will get both the water and the sewer bill.
Well, they should be in the water system already, right?
Right.
As long as they're not North Cohasset, I guess, right? Or whoever uses Aquarian.
Yeah. How many people are on that list? Do you remember, Lisa? Because I don't.
I don't remember.
I had heard about 8, right? Dan?
No, whoever uses aquarium water.
No. Not the people. How many people are on aquarium water? How many people have not gotten a sewer bill?
I think it was down to 6. I think there was still 1 for Otis. Was that ever looked at by Scott?
Which one?
For Otis?
For Otis. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did look at that. Let me confirm with him.
Who's him?
Oh, Scott Papa.
That one might have been a tear down or a rebuild, but, you know, it had a pump under the original contract in 2000.
Hmm.
It just, maybe they didn't initially tie in.
Well, right.
So the question is the grinder pump still there? And two, is it being utilized?
Oh, no, they are using, I think the question with Fort Otis was the grinder pump, not the sewer use. Because I believe, actually, I can check.
Well, part of it was basically if they did a tear down and they put in their own pump afterwards. But he was going to check to see
We're
what type
just
of pump.
talking about the usage right now versus grinder pumps. See if I can get there. Otis. Yeah, they're on sewer. They've been paying for sewer charges. It's just the grinder pump on that one.
The grinder pump fee.
Right. They've been on sewer since, or paying for sewer. Looks like, oh yeah, that's right. This one was March of 2019.
Is what, when they were connected?
When they were. Yep.
And that might have been a new pump that they replaced. So the question is, you know, I mean, they got a pump back in 2000. It just may have been missed as far as the final connection. But you're only going back 2 years too, so there's not much to capture.
Yeah, I'll confirm with Scott whether or not or my notes. I'm at home right now, but I'll be in the office later.
Does FR Mahoney have a computer list of every grinder pump that's been installed in Cohasset?
Yes.
Have we used that lit? Could we get a copy of that list and
Yep,
then?
I used it for the 1 million mine list. They don't really segregate though, which is town owned and which is not. So it's a resource, but it's limited.
And I think we confirmed that there were like 2 that have not been converted yet. One is on Lily Pond. I want to say it's 9 Lily Pond. Hasn't been converted. And then
That's the one where if he didn't want to upgrade the electrical service.
that's number 5.
Oh, okay.
And then there was number 9 that hasn't been converted, I believe, but my notes are back at the office. And then there was one on Border Street that hadn't been converted either. That I believe is a vacant building right now.
That's the building that's under, that they are rebuilding,
Yes,
sale now or something?
it was for sale.
It's been listed for sale, I guess, but
Yeah.
I didn't know. I thought maybe there was a problem with permitting on that because it certainly was a lot bigger than the previous structure and it was a lot closer to the road and things like that. So I almost thought it might have been
From what I understand, it was a divorce situation.
okay.
What was the address again?
I want to say it was like 90 border, but I don't know off the top of my head. Actually, I can probably look it up.
We tore the old house down
Yes.
and then they put a McMansion back up. And it's unfinished.
Oh, is this the one right across from the lobster pond?
This is for, you go over the bridge, around the right-hand side, about the fourth house on the right, right on the street, way up in the air, and it's unfinished. The plywood's still on it, no siding and stuff.
Oh, yeah, it just sold. Yeah, I know that guy. Okay.
Yeah, I'll get the address.
Okay.
I don't have it right now.
All right.
And can I ask about the timing of sending out the easement packages?
Sure.
I want to take a look at the package and, you know, just make sure everything's there from my perspective. Lisa, the postcards went out long enough ago that, you know, that anything returned should have been returned.
Yeah, I might give it to the end of the week anyways,
Okay.
because then that'll be 2 solid weeks.
All right. And I will review the package in the meantime. So we should be able to give the go ahead first of next week.
Okay. Should we go to fats and oils and everything else?
Yep.
What are we discussing? What prompted this to be on the agenda?
At last meeting, it was brought up, and I believe that Wayne asked it to be on discussion.
I'm happy to take credit for putting it on the agenda here. And I think it's something that we likely want to do in conjunction with the Board of Health. Because, and something that's in conjunction with permit renewals by establishments. Because I think that if it wasn't for the fire department having a rule that before they'll authorize or tell the selectmen that people can renew their liquor licenses or their restaurant licenses, they have to do certain requirements. So the fire department once a year goes out and checks the fire extinguishers and all that stuff. And I think if they didn't do that type of thing, it would never get done. And so I think a similar scenario should exist for grease traps, because I think there are grease traps out there, probably some that we don't know, that are not necessarily maintained properly, and therefore they're sending more grease and fats to the treatment plant. And most of the harm, in my opinion, is the pipe blockages from the establishments to the public sewer, and the things that can affect our collection system, almost with the harm that it does to try to dissolve the fats and greases in the process, in the plant processes.
We have a list of all the establishments that have a grease trap, pretty much, like all the restaurants.
I don't.
Last list that was put together was probably 2004. So by Veolia. So there were 15 at that time.
Right, but we really haven't had the only like brand new restaurant. I mean, there are people that have taken over other restaurants that were existing. You know, like when I used to remember De Niro's used to be a real problem, and then taken over by the Corner Stop.
But the question is, when's the last time these 15 establishments or more have cleaned their grease traps? And I think there has been significantly more done now that in other words, I think it is a sewer department task through our operator to ensure that either they're notified when it's cleaned or they do an inspection. First thing they should do in reestablishing our, wanting to do something is to make an inspection of them today. In other words, pick a time and go to each of these establishments and literally check it, put some notes as far as what size it is and stuff like that and what condition it's in. There are places now that didn't have grease traps in 2004 because they weren't around.
Yeah.
And Senior Center or now the Sandy Beach has one. These other places that you don't normally think about, the Light Keepers resident has one. And I know by being in the basement there that it isn't really, the cover's off of it and I see it dripping onto the ledge and I wonder, who's taking care of it. And these that I'm talking about are quite small. And they're in the establishments. Via Bistro has one under the kitchen sink, but it's like 5 or 10 gallons. I'm not sure how often they clean that out, what the procedure is and stuff like that. So some are larger and most of them seem to be a little smaller. So that was my reason for bringing something up.
It'd be good to touch base with the Board of Health to see what they have for a list of grease traps.
Yeah,
And then-
whether or not they inspect them at all.
And then compare that to what we have and also the sewer system to see what's on. It used to be back in the era of Veolia that on a quarterly basis, the operator would inspect those traps, look at the records and make sure they were pumped on a regular basis. I actually was trying back then to try to get an interior inspection of some of these underground ones, the outside ones, because I just knew a couple of locations where they looked to be very susceptible to II. In other words, you look at the lawn area or the paved area where the covers are sitting and it's lower than the pavement. So it ponds water, collects water, and that just goes into the system. And, some improvements need to be made.
I think it's probably one of the worst grease trap situations that we have in town because it is literally a failed grease trap that has a cover that has holes in it and it's getting water and there's, I'm not sure, when you have sewer, do you ever think about pumping something out? No, you don't. If in the old days, if you had a cesspool or septic system or something, you'd be pumping out the septic tank. But in this case, they're not there.
Yeah, I mean, the revised rules and regulations, which are still hanging out there, need comment and feedback and public participation and vetting, sorry. Those had a revised section in there for fog. And what it involved is actually some self-monitoring on the part of the people who have these grease removal facilities. Instead of you paying, Wood and Curran to go out there and inspect them on a quarterly basis, it's better to have them, send them a postcard or something and they have to fill it out and send it back, on a semi-annual base, quarterly base, whatever you want. If you just do it for self-monitoring, they're probably not going to do it. So there still needs to be some administration there, but at least that way they're being maintained properly. And the ones that are outside and underground, I think you should require the next time they're pumped down, an interior inspection and report by the pumper. To see what, if there's any leaking of the tank, any leaking of the covers, how the riser is. They sit there in the ground for 20, 30 years and they deteriorate. And maybe at the time of the pumping, we can also have somebody there to inspect it at the same time.
Yeah, I'd like to coordinate it with the Board of Health though, because there are even, taking care of the grease trap is going to absolutely help a septic system and prevent the material from getting into the leaching field. And you don't know whether this entity is going to be on sewer at a, a certain time afterwards or whatever. And I'm only thinking of something like Sunrise Assisted Living. They had a 1,000-gallon tank up there, but did they as a corporate entity have on their management plan to have someone go and pump it out to sort of help not having their leaching field fail prematurely? So I think it really is Board of Health that should be doing this in conjunction with us, maybe in place of us. Maybe it's valuable enough that she should take over all grease traps in whether it's sewer or not sewer.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they actually monitor those, to be honest with you, especially the ones on sewer. I know for grease traps on leaching fields, that falls within their purview. But it's really a building code item, a plumbing code to install these in some of these commercial facilities. So I mean, once they're installed, who monitors them? I'm not really sure if there is anybody, but typically if they're on a septic system, then it'd be Board of Health domain. And if they're on the sewer system, then theoretically they should be on your domain. But certainly it's good to check with them to see what they do and see what they have for lists. Let's start off.
I've been on the end of cleaning out pipes that are filled with grease because the current dishwashers now are at such a high temperature that any grease that's in there, tomato paste, pasta, whatever it happens to be, is bypassing that little grease trap. And then as it's getting out into the sewer pipes, it's coagulating on the side of the pipes because it's getting cooler and cooler.
Right. All you need is one sag.
That's it too. Yeah. So anyway, that's it is something that let's consider. Talking to the Board of Health, just saying this. This came up at our meeting, Lisa, and what does she do? And does she do anything on the septic system side for restaurants and different places like that? Because things like the pizza place, feng shui, that's a perfect example of someone that I don't think had been taking care of it, and caused significant problems for them. And yet you hear that, well, there are 2 grease traps and we kept clean them out all the time, whatever. So if something like that was to get on public sewer, it would bother me because I wouldn't be sure that I wouldn't be getting all of that material coming into our plant.
Right.
And you add up those,
right,
it's going to be more of a problem.
Should we invite her to our next meeting?
You could do that, but tell her about what we'd like to do, and maybe 15 minutes, whether it makes sense to do something. And I think also check our Woodward and Curran contract, because I believe the previous contract had something about grease traps. We might have put some language in that this might be under one of the purviews.
And that was Pam, right? Pam?
Yes. Yep. With respect to the next meeting, does the 9th of February look good for everybody?
Sure.
Yeah, right now it's good for me. So.
Okay, let's make it the 9th of February.
Okay. Are we all set with grease?
Yep.
Good. What else, Lisa?
We talked, on the agenda is the fiscal year 2020 budget and capital, but we're talking with Don tomorrow.
Right. Yep. Yep.
You want to talk
No,
about
I
it?
think there's. I think we'll just talk tomorrow with Don, and then we'll. I think I went through my copies the last couple of nights, and I think we'll be fine. I think it's just a matter of what capital we have, and then just estimating expenses and things of that nature. So I think we'll be good.
And that was it.
Okay. Anyone else have anything else to talk about?
You got that list that I sent you last night?
I did. I've read most of it, but I'd like to have that like the next meeting or something, and go over it.
Yeah, I got it. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I did get it. So
I appreciate how good it is. So and the fact that when we sort of agree to this stuff, we can get some of this information up to Brian Joyce and stuff like that, so that they know what we potentially are going to spend for South Main Street design and stuff like that. So this is some detail on this project management. It's some detail on I&I that we're very interested in, and a number of other things that I'd love to, finalize in writing, and then start getting some results on the.
Do we want to set up a separate meeting, or is this going to be discussed at the next February 9th meeting?
I think February 9th is just a short time away, so I think we could, rather than putting another meeting in between or something.
Yeah, we could do it then.
Yeah, I mean, if you have any comments, just email them individually to me.
Yep. All right.
Go through.
I mean, just cursory. I mean, I think we just put priorities on what we want to do and all that. But yeah, I'll go through it probably over the weekend. So
Gives us the numbers, the different things that we wanted about identifying numbers and coding, saying, this is
right.
But it's sort of like catching up, sort of getting the last couple of years and bringing it up to date.
Mhm.
The way I see it. So that's good.
Yep.
All right.
The other, I don't know if they want to have any discussion about the meeting that's coming up on the
Tomorrow night?
plan. What is it, tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night, 7, the master
Mhm.
plan meeting.
Do we know who's presenting?
As far as I think, it's from somebody from GHD or GSD or whatever, Greg, I think, and then I guess there'll be comments on what's it'll be interesting to see how that all gets prioritized by the town as to what they want to do first, second, third, or that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
The the pamphlet that came out, with the Cohasset sewer area and different.
Yeah.
It is. I think some of the comments that are in here certainly require some explanation and stuff like that, and so I think that we certainly want to be on it and sort of see what happens. But as I say, most of the time when you hire someone like this, it's never finished, and it never really has a conclusion. And it just has a number of questions that they want you to then go forward with. When it says develop a report to address one or more of the questions presently presented previously, and of course everything is phase two, complete a comprehensive plan to address growth, nutrient management facilities need, including what would be done as part of the facilities plan, regional approaches, and towns' concerns that go beyond phase 2 regional efforts. So when phase 2 is repeated so many times and the regional efforts have done so much, it certainly looks like me that there's going to be people that are going to say, let's spend the other $300,000 and let's go forward, and maybe make us do a comprehensive plan, for which I'm sure there's no estimate today for what that would cost. So the next project steps, according to us, to revise and finalize the deliverable for town, present findings to the town. So to me, when it says to the town, it's going to be, and you're presenting the findings to the town, it's like, this is what we want to do, without necessarily inviting the town, and any resident that wants to come and log in to give their opinions on where we want Cohasset to develop. And GHD with its water, energy resources, property and buildings, environment and transportation, showing windmills and all this other stuff in our plan, it scares me a little bit.
yeah, I agree. But I also am. I'm also concerned that one or two people will take over the meeting, and maybe they'll be a little bit more succinct on it, that they will take over the meeting and direct it to where they want it to go, without getting any real comment from us. I think one of the things that that we have asked on several occasions of the town is to reinvigorate at least a discussion with Situate, and that hasn't occurred yet. My understanding is that this presentation, as it gets sent to the select board, will open the door to discussion of a regionalization and whether or not it will work or not. But I think at the very first step of that is to have a conversation between whoever the power is to be in Situate and the Cohasset Sewer Board, and not a cast of thousands that are going to throw everybody's input. We should have a chat with them to see, okay, what do you really want to do? What can you afford to do? And then look at the basic points of how we would actually do it without all the noise of 3A and other areas. There are, Wayne, to your point the other day when we spoke, there are ways of sewering problematic areas on 3A, like the area where Curtis Liquors is and Starbucks. You can sewer that from Main Street, right? You can go through that neighborhood and get to Main Street rather than going down and do the same to the Gulf Station on the corner of Beechwood and cover all those areas that have issues without necessarily opening up sewer access to anybody on 3A, which I think is a danger to the town. And we could do that to different other areas, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Hey, Wayne and Bill, can you hear me? It's Brian. Sorry,
Yep.
I'm on the phone. So those both very good points. So just tomorrow, the format of the meeting is, GHD is going to run the presentation. Prior to, I'm going to just open up the meeting and kind of detail rules of engagement. So it's not like last time where, one person just dominates the conversation. So I think what we're going to do is have GHD do the presentation. In the presentation and their whole task for them is not a final deliverable on here's what we should do, but to your point, it's kind of getting a list of questions from every stakeholder and putting it on paper so that it's a comprehensive strategic planning document to work forward. So I don't think there's going to be any final deliverable like let's go regional and let's not. Mm-hmm. But on the format of the meeting, so it doesn't get hijacked, it's the GHD is going to do the presentation, and then I think we open up to questions from each group holder, and then I'm going to do a time allotment for each group holder. So if you guys want to get your comments, basically what you said and anything other thoughts, I'm thinking maybe 5 minutes each, and that and then you have the floor, so that there's not a lot of talking over, commandeering in the conversation.
Yeah.
And from there, I guess we'll know at the end of the meeting what next steps and deliverables are going to be. But since your last meeting with these guys, they've had those individual stakeholder meetings with every group. And Wayne, a lot of the things you were saying, came from questions from those groups, things that I was surprised that came up too, but it was, those are thoughts from every stakeholder group that's out there. So that's where we are. And I think it'll be a fair meeting and not kind of, won't get commandeered by any one group.
Can you consider sort of limiting the number of times someone can speak? And almost have a stopwatch. I don't want it to be like the first presidential debate. That just went crazy. It was like, who the heck is?
I don't think it's calling me a liar, but that's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, before the presentation, we'll open it up to questions after, and we'll give each, planning board 5 minutes, sewer board 5 minutes, and I'll be the moderator with a stopwatch. So, there's only a limited Zoom window here.
Right. And the presentation may take, what, a half hour or no, or less?
No, it shouldn't take that long, I wouldn't think. I hope not.
I think 20 minutes, half hour, and then I think questions by each with some discussion. and then I guess final comments by each, you know, and I think some of your points you just made were probably pretty good. Will caution, I think maybe one of you should be the spokesperson, just for public meeting. Let me try to find out what the deal is on that. Actually, Rod, are you still on the phone? Do you know the deal? Can they speak independently, just not deliberate?
Well, I think
meetings.
we did it as a meeting, didn't we, Lisa?
Yeah, I thought that we put that up as an actual meeting, so we both can be on and participating.
Yep, I sent it over to the powers that be that publish them. I
Yeah.
sent it yesterday morning.
All right, great. All right, then not to worry.
I don't
All right,
think,
so
we won't take it over.
yeah, no, and I think everyone's just going to have their allotted amount of time, and then we'll call it every, you know, whatever it is. I'm thinking like a 5-minute.
Okay, so give me
Each.
2.5 and 2.5 if it's needed.
Yeah.
And so we're not going over, not being special. And can you, when I went through the presentation and stuff, I'm just so confused with the circles. So can he do a good job in explaining the circles? You know, no action, no growth, and then the water concerns, environmental things. The next one says, you know, there are what, 6 of them, I guess. Cohasset, Hull, Situate, none with Cohasset and Situate by itself. But those circles are what made me confused. So.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of discussion tomorrow, and then there's going to be a lot of discussion that probably, I'm thinking maybe another follow-up before any kind of final deliverable with just each group separately again. Like, so the sewer department, you guys can answer any questions, but he should be, you know, explaining the circles and you know, the concepts behind it.
Yeah, that's the idea, you know, and you know, so anyway, and there's probably a key to it because, you know, as I look at it, the bottom right might say no growth, and the next group says phase 2 for the blue circle, and I don't know. I'm sure that they've used it before, so they should know what someone's going to think it, you know, what their opinion is or how they understand it. So that's good. Anyway, we've liked done, by the way, so far in terms of when they worked for us in 2005 or 2015. They did a good job, and they seem to have captured everything in many cases, being very fair with the individual reports they did with the different people they talked to, like their notes. So that I think that was good.
Yeah, I think it was, in reading all the notes, I think it was fair and balanced. They captured everyone's kind of concepts or issues or things they thought were important. And then so tomorrow, unlike the first meeting, we're going to try to regulate, you know, time for each person. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Sure.
Maybe Brian, I should mention one other thing. Mr. Stasko has caught me down the side of the road one day, and he did some other things, and he seems to be planning to going ahead to design with his engineers. He said he signed a contract to have them design the sewer pipe going down 3A, and I wasn't sure if anybody else knew that, or what design would he use to go down the street? And he sent me a picture, almost unsolicited, of what the grant request was, along with the estimate for what the town had done and didn't do, and then said that the town is going to refile the application again in a month or two. And I said, I don't want to be in the middle of this, Donald. And, you know, I don't know, don't bother me with this, but, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm aware, and I have not talked to him. I haven't talked to him since, I guess, a conversation back in September, but as we talked about, we applied for the grant wasn't awarded, and now next steps are really, I guess it kind of goes back to the memo that the sewer board drafted with detailing what an agreement for a sewer connection would have to be and what, what the terms would be. So that's, in my mind, where we stand. I'm careful not to, we're going to have an internal meeting, and it'll probably include you guys before we have any kind of, I guess, more formal discussions, because, we just need to make sure that we're going down the right path and it's not answer shopping until you get the right answer. And, I proceeded with the sewer design. So, anyway, right now it's in the Board of Health and Building Department's hands. And it's up to the developer to figure out how to sewer the site.
I think the only thing I'm thinking is that he has to present a preliminary plan of what he'd want to do so that the town can look at that plan and say, how is it going to affect our existing utilities? How is it going to affect, a whole host of things? And the town is going to have to be the one that technically puts it in if it gets put in. And so we shouldn't be designing something that isn't going to, for instance, let's say he designed something and his design is where the water department wants to put a new main 5 years from now,
Yeah.
10 years from now, whatever. And so we really need a master plan for that section of road, that what we would like done. And we know that that's, I'm trying to get some common sense in what's here, And,
Yeah, I know. And I think those details were, I'll have to go back and read the agreement that Rod and you guys had drafted to send to Delisi. But I think all those details were in that agreement, that they would need to do a conceptual design. It would have to be vetted by town engineering or sewer engineering.
Both, I think.
So, yeah. So, I mean, it was pretty detailed. I read it in the last 3 weeks. So it's, the way I see it is that was the last formal transmission from the town to the developer. And those are the rules of, the rules of engagement, I guess. So if there's any interaction, I think we're going to talk about it internally. I guess over the next week, it's on the plate because, the grant wasn't awarded, and now what are next steps? So I'll see what the Board of Health and the Building Department have to say, and then we'll talk again.
Okay, very good.
All right.
So
Thanks.
before we move on, I just checked the website and it's the agenda's not posted. I'm going to follow up with that when I get back in. But so I guess the question remains to Rod is, if it's for discussion purposes only, can both sewer commissioners speak? As long as there's no decision?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good to me. Anyone have anything else? No?
Brian, I like your use of the term rules of engagement. It seems appropriate.
Thanks.
I'm just worried about the sharpshooters there or something.
We'll see. It should be entertaining anyway, so.
No, I think the first meeting certainly should be cordial and people listening to what different options are and
Like, you mean like the last one?
respect. All right. Anyway, let's
All right.
over predicting what might happen. So
Correct. So can I make a motion that we adjourn?
certainly may.
All right. All in favor?